Hear me and hear me good, nigga. I'm here to double down. After everything I witnessed, I still have to say, I do not believe in the Boston Celtics, and it's Jayson Tatum's fault.
There's only one beer left. Rappers screaming all in our ears like we're deaf. Tempt me, do a number on the label.
The Boston Celtics are a good team. They haven't really been tested these playoffs too well, but it's not their fault. You have to play who's in front of you. And Jayson Tatum is a good player. He's probably a top 10 level talent. He is the prototypical good player. And I think that's where he gets in trouble. Because I believe Jayson Tatum has the Anthony Davis problem, where any given night, they could be the best player in the league, best player on the floor, but then he'll come out and say, I'll be a third option. I don't care.
And that's something I can agree with. And that's really also the Celtics as a whole. They just don't move the needle for me. And that's not really a fault of their own all the time. They just don't have anything interesting going on. And I think that's something I've seen mirrored throughout the entire NBA community. It's just not moving whatsoever. Now, when you look at the stats, I mean, the Celtics had a great record this year, and Jayson Tatum had a great year. I mean, 6 in MVP voting, all NBA first team, but it's never really eye-catching. And in the society we live in now, it's very clip-driven. So Jayson Tatum doesn't even have any clippable moment. Now, on the flip side of that, who has the most traction this year? Who's gained the most popularity? Anthony Edwards. And he's had nothing but clippable moments, and we don't even have to look at the numbers.
The problem with him is Jayson Tatum is just so vanilla. He doesn't do anything. Even off the court, he doesn't say anything. There's never a hot clip, a hot mic take. He just be just chilling.
And leading up and doing research for this video beforehand, I was like having to scour the entire internet for anything on some personal information. If you go look at his wiki, it's like 3 lines long for personal life section. You're like,
Jayson Tatum has a son. Jayson Tatum plays NBA basketball. Like that's
right.
All you'll find.
Like, do you know that he's from Missouri? No, and no one does.
No one cares.
That's the most bland place in the world.
Boo, Missouri. And hey, at least it's not Detroit.
It could be worse though. At least we're not Detroit.
Jayson Tatum also has a problem of suffering from success. He's been to 6 Eastern Conference Finals appearances and 1 finals appearance, and he always has a great team. So he never has to have that trial of, can he lead a team full of bums? How many times, Corey, have you seen Jaylen Brown step up and become that superstar talent, and the best player on the floor is just in the corner vibing?
I saw it throughout the entire Indiana Pacers series, and that obviously led to Jaylen Brown getting the Eastern Conference Finals MVP. But I think Tatum now is under such a tight microscope that it's caused me to really look at the game and look at Tatum and see him in crunch time, final 5 minutes, just sitting there pedestrian. And I'm like, aren't you supposed to be the superstar of this team? And I see Jaylen Brown taking over, and then sometimes seeing Tatum defer to Derek White. I'm like, this is interesting.
That's not very Kobe of you, buddy.
It's not very Kobe.
I think this will also, a lot of people have their anti-Tatum agenda because he's a huge Kobe fan. He let us all know it. He wore the armband during Game 7 last year. He texted Kobe's ghost after he did it for him. And as a Boston Celtics legend, he wore a Lakers jersey during their 75th anniversary event, which I don't know who told him that was a good idea. That's
That's
not
criminal.
it, Chief. That ain't it, buddy.
I know. And I feel like Celtics fans deep down, they just can't agree with that. That just doesn't align right. That doesn't align correctly at all.
His love for Kobe Bryant has really put a hampering on his NBA career. How many times, Corey, have you seen him get into trouble and resort to that fadeaway that never goes in?
Every time. I mean, it's often. I could put up 100 clips right now of it happening. And we will. Cue the clip.
What surprises me the most about those fadeaways is that Jayson Tatum is a top 3 slasher to the rim, slasher to the rim when he puts his head down and decides that he wants to be that guy. He doesn't need to Kobe every 2 minutes.
He needs to realize that he's 6'8", 210. When he does, he's so elite and he's actually enjoyable to watch when he gets to the rim, but he's just trying to be what he's not sometimes. And it, like I said, that just doesn't, I just don't agree with that.
Super annoying to watch. And then defer to Derek White.
Right. No, and he did it a lot in this Pacers series. He didn't do it as much in the series prior, but let's be honest, he hasn't had incredible playoffs throughout this 2023-2024.
He's been fine. He's leading the team in every statistical category, at least on offense anyway. But the problem with that is just, who cares, man? Right. We don't care. Look at him. We don't care.
Absolutely. Nobody cares. I mean, yeah, 26 points per game is very impressive. 5.9 assists, 10.4 rebounds. I mean, the man's averaging a double-double, but
he's a great all-around player. He's just so vanilla. That's the biggest problem.
Right.
I'm gonna keep saying it. That's why no one cares about Jayson Tatum, because he's just meh. He's the meh superstar. That's going to be the title of the video. I figured it out. The meh superstar.
The meh superstar. I can agree with that fully.
I had a comparison, Corey, that just hit me during this recording that I would like to share with you in the audience.
Okay. I'm ready because I haven't heard this yet.
Jayson Tatum is the Big Sean of NBA superstars.
He drops and we're just like, okay.
Exactly. Big Sean.
That's cool.
If you don't know, Big Sean is hip-hop's most non-essential rapper. You don't really need him. If you want super lyrical spiritual miracle, you can go to Cole. If you want soul rap, you can go to Kendrick. If you want top 40s hits, you go to Drake. Big Sean doesn't excel at anything. But he's pretty good.
But he's good.
You get Big Sean in the feature, it's gonna do okay. It's Big Sean.
Right. That's another thing. If you look on paper, if you look at the numbers, oh man, he's a legend. But then if you really get down and you're experiencing it live, you're like,
if you're alive during Big Sean's career, you know that it's whatever. That's Jayson Tatum. If you want elite slashing, there's Giannis. If you want elite shooting, there's Curry. If you want elite playmaking, there's Jokic. If you want an elite all-around player, there's Luka. And then you have Jayson Tatum, the league's most non-essential NBA superstar. There's so many good titles.
And going into the Big Sean comparison, it's funny to me because it really does mirror Jayson Tatum now that you say it. Because Big Sean will drop a ton of mid, and then he'll drop something like Detroit too, and you're like, oh, okay. It gets you kind of hyped. You're like, oh, okay. Big Sean really like
favors,
that?
Bounce back, jumping out the window. He can do this? I'm sorry. I was unfamiliar with your game.
Right. And that's mirrors Tatum, 50-piece, game 7 against last year. I mean, you're like, oh, okay, Tatum. He's finally here to start making some moments.
You go on to watch that Miami series last year.
Yeah, and then you're like, oh, okay. Yeah, it falls off a cliff right then and there.
Okay. I'm sorry. I wasn't familiar with your game.
Man, as I always say, guys, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Man, we've really experienced the love from you guys recently, man. You guys have been showing support so much. Maybe not on the short form content, cue some of the comments here, but on our YouTube channel, man, we really appreciate the love we've gotten. It's far exceeded our expectations. So while you're here, man, go ahead and hit that like, hit that subscribe button, and remember to ring that bell so you can have the post notifications on, and let's get right back into it.
I think one of my biggest mistakes I've done in this YouTube journey so far was to not explain why I do not believe in Jayson Tatum. It's all fun and games to call him out, to make fun of his play style, and to make fun of his Kobe obsession. But Jayson Tatum is truly a non-essential NBA player. He's great, he's elite, but he's just meh in terms of NBA superstar. I'd rather have Jayson Tatum on my team more than almost any other player in the league. Anyone outside the top 10, of course. But that doesn't mean that I love the guy and that he's amazing. He's the lowest end of NBA superstar. And the fact that he doesn't talk in the media much or cause problems, do anything other than play with his son does not help his superstar reputation. Look at Anthony Edwards right now, who's not having the greatest series. We could argue as to why, but he's not having a great series right now. But he's such a personality, people tend to defend him. Right. People tend to try to make excuses and try to figure out what's going on with Dabrowski. Of course, he's getting his share of criticism, but he's an NBA player who doesn't get criticized. If you put Tatum in a situation, that doesn't happen.
Right.
Because people just start criticizing because they haven't latched on to anything they like about the guy.
Right. And that's the thing with Anthony Edwards is he's had, like I've said before, he's had all these moments. So I hate to bring up the YouTube word, but it's almost like a parasocial thing where you're like seeing him and you connect with him as a player. He's very human. He's not just robotic when he goes out there, and you tend to defend him more. I completely agree with that. Now, when Tatum does it, it's a whole different story, a whole different ball game because what's there to care about? And he hasn't given us anything except for maybe a few moments.
And he's so nice, such a nice guy on the court. And don't get me wrong, he is a dog, but he's such a cool, customer vanilla player that, again, he has Anthony Davis syndrome, and he goes into these moments where he decides he is no longer the best player on the court and just becomes the third or fourth option. Now, of course, he's always on good teams, so he's able to do that. But I feel like a lot of other players would say, hey, I don't care how hot you are, I got to get mine. Shout out KD, Curry, Luka, Kyrie, and LeBron.
Do you think that if his career went differently and he's drafted to a team like, let's say,
the Kings or somebody,
the
like
Kings,
bad, yeah,
correct? Do you think the narrative is shifted if he's playing this well, but he's just not making the playoffs? Do you think that this is actually hurting his legacy?
Truly, I think he would have a Damian Lillard type career where everyone says, oh, he's so underrated. He's so underrated. He's so good. He's so underrated. So underrated. But it's to the point to where, you know, if everyone says you're underrated, are you really underrated? I think that's what it is. He wouldn't be playing meaningful basketball. And when he does, if he fails, they'll go, well, look who he has around him. Like any other superstar. Because again, he doesn't talk much. So it just, people just assume that if he was on a better team, he would do better.
And it also gives him the option to default to other people in moments.
Exactly, yeah.
Dame did not have a choice. Maybe McCollum at points, but at the end of the day, it was Dame because he had no other choice.
In summary, I don't hate Jayson Tatum. He's not a bad guy, and he's a good NBA player. But when I see him on the other side of that court, he does not strike fear in my heart like the other NBA superstars do. When you see Luka on the other side speaking his native language, calling you the N-word, you feel some type of way. If I see Tatum light-skinned ass,
it doesn't move me.
Start doing that post-up lots to do, I don't get scared.
Yeah, and who would? I mean, I feel like Tatum is almost the definition of the NBA paradox. When a great player is put in a great situation and produces highly, he becomes too comfortable with that situation.
Preach.
Some of the greats earlier in their career, like Jordan and LeBron, were really put through the fire on horrible teams and began to be comfortable in a first option role. Tatum came in to a Kyrie-led Boston Celtics. So he was already accustomed to being, at the time, maybe a second or third option, more like a third or fourth option, if you consider Jaylen Brown better than him at that time. And
I don't. He never was.
But some detractors would disagree. He's just so comfortable defaulting to everyone else, you know?
Because he came in as a second or third option.
As a second or third option, so that's what he's used to. And then when it became his own team, you know, in the regular season, he started to get comfortable with it. But in the playoffs, his automatic idea of what it's supposed to be in the Eastern Conference Finals, apparently, you know, is to just sit back and say, okay, I can be here, but let's all get a little piece of the pie here. But when it comes crunch time, we need you, man.
Either that or get into his Kobe fantasy and take every godforsaken shot he can find.
Right.
And I'm fine. The fadeaway.
I'm fine with that if it's producing winning basketball, but let's not sit here and say that he is the superstar face of the league, because that's not what someone like that does in a situation like that.
No. Jayson Tatum is a great player. He's just very unessential.
Thank you guys so much for watching, man. We really appreciate all the love, like I've said before. Remember, subscribe and like this video so you can show support for us, and we're going to keep pumping out those videos for y'all. So, see you guys next time.
My nigga, I peep God's work. Boy, I'm twisting in the clockwork. I ain't stopping till I see my mama shitting in the fox fur. To the gold chain hanging.